When it's after midnight, we aren't allowed to go downstairs alone. The town I live in is nice enough. It's quiet, a little quaint. My dream is to move to the city once I graduate from college. I want a life where things are busier, more exciting, more alive. I live at home with my parents and my twin sister. Both of my parents are underpaid teachers, so our upbringing has been relatively modest. We've never been spoiled, we've always been told to work hard for every dollar, and gratitude for everything we have has been instilled in us since childhood. My parents must have worked really hard to save money throughout these years, because the house that we've lived in since I was a teen is pretty darn huge. Our tiny little town in general is relatively prestigious, so I do my part to extract wisdom from my parents whenever possible. Clearly, they know a thing or two about how to win at life. Of all of the things my parents ask of me and my sister, the rule they are the most stern about is, if you're going downstairs after midnight, you have to bring someone with you. Ever since we first moved to this house, they would remind us of this rule every chance they got. They'd randomly bring it up at the dinner table or before we'd go off to school. Sometimes, if they heard footsteps in the hallway at night, one of them would get up from bed and walk with us to wherever in the house we were going. The strangest thing about it was that me and my sister never really had any reason to go downstairs at night anyways. Our rooms, the living room, the kitchen, and pretty much everything else we use was upstairs. Sure, downstairs had a games room and some stuff we maybe needed to pull out from storage from time to time, but overall, I couldn't really think of a scenario where we'd need to go downstairs after midnight. My sister and I would ask my parents about it sometimes. Why do we have this rule? What happens if we break it? They would usually deflect, change the subject, or say, we'll tell you when you're older, dear. As I got older and older, the fact that my whole family slept upstairs became increasingly weird to me. I was curious about what exactly was going on. So, fresh off my 20th birthday, I decided to conjure up a situation where I'd absolutely need to head downstairs after 12 a.m. Mom, I left my laptop in the games room and I need to polish up a paper that I'm submitting tomorrow. Lame excuse, I know. She was skeptical and pushed back a little bit. Can I get up early tomorrow and finish up the essay in the morning? Why did I leave this assignment until the last minute? I was able to assuage these questions pretty easily. I thought it was due 2 days from now. I thought my laptop was in my room. I'm a little bit stressed and I won't be able to sleep if I don't finish it, etc., etc. So she ultimately obliged. We made our way down the small staircase and arrived at the door leading to the downstairs area. Before my mother opened it, she turned to me. Okay, he's likely going to latch onto me. Make sure I don't open the door to the backyard, okay? Make sure I'm with you at all times. You can pull me if you need to. I thought she was kidding. She opened the door. Our downstairs area has another small living room, a small kitchen, and a hallway that leads to our games room and our storage area. I'd accidentally left my laptop in the games room, so as we entered, I immediately turned towards the hallway. I thought my mom would follow me. Instead, I saw her, just standing there, shivering, jittery. Her gaze was fixed on the window in the kitchen. It's a big window, with the blinds usually pulled up. The window was a peek into our large, mostly empty backyard. I looked at my mom confusedly as she continued her uninterrupted stare. Slowly, she started walking to the door to our backyard. Mom, what are you? That's when I saw him, pressed against the window from the outside. His face was obscured by the darkness, but I could see his eyes. Wide open, wider than eyes should go. Otherworldly. He looked focused, excited. My mom continued walking to the door. I grabbed her as hard as I could and pulled her away, back to the staircase leading upstairs. I closed the door behind us. It took my mom a moment to snap out of it. She spent another minute staring at the door to the downstairs area, meekly trying to open it and go back to where she was previously walking to. When she finally pulled herself together. What the fuck was that? Did you get your laptop, hun? Mom, what the fuck was that outside the window? Mom's reaction was weird. A mix of annoyance, concern, and fear. She finally responded. Terrible things happen when we talk about him too much. As long as we go downstairs in pairs of two, we're always okay. No one's let him in yet. And that was that. I continued asking her as we made our way upstairs, but she just flat out ignored me at this point. I had no idea what to do. I wanted to tell my sister, but part of me thought that it would only freak the hell out of her and achieve nothing. I tried bugging my dad about it, but he also deflected. At most, sometimes he'd say something like, we just wanted to make sure we could give you and your sister a comfortable upbringing, and then walk away. What the fuck? It's been 2 years since me and my mom went downstairs together after midnight. Since then, we've continued to follow the rule, and we'd thankfully never run into any problems. I've tried to convince my parents that we should think about downsizing and moving somewhere else, but they'd always say stuff like, that isn't how this works, dear, and as long as we play it safe after midnight, we'll be okay. That brings me to why I'm writing this today. My parents have been gone for the week, visiting family in another state. My sister left earlier this evening to go to a sleepover with her best friend. I'm home alone, for the first time in forever. I don't usually have my phone on me. It takes me a couple of hours, at least, to read and respond to text messages. I've always been lazy about it. I recently took a look at my phone to see a missed text message from my sister. Hey, I might have accidentally left the downstairs door open. Just an FYI, please close it whenever you get a sec. She sent this text message 4 hours ago. I read it at 10 minutes past midnight. I'm writing this from the closet in my room. So far, I think I'm okay. Maybe she's misremembering and she kept the door shut. The only thing I'm worried about is that I'm starting to shiver a little bit. And I have this inexplicable urge to get out from my hiding spot so that he can find me. I listen to a true crime podcast about myself. Every night on my walk home from work, I listen to true crime podcasts. Even though my favorite podcast already released their episode for this week, the app said there was a new one. Excited, I hit play. It was a small town, the kind that still has mom and pop mom-and-pop shops lining the street, the kind where everyone knows your name. But little did the residents know that they would soon be rocked by a horrible crime. I stopped at a traffic light. The red glowed in the darkness, glinting off the wet street. A black SUV sloshed by. Across from me, eerie blue refrigerator lights glowed from inside a corner deli. The chairs all up on their tables, feet in the air. The signal turned to walk. That chilly September evening was no different for the young student. She'd left her shift at the local store and walked back home. Except she never made it home. Young student, local store. Damn, this was hitting close to home. I was a part-time student at Franklin Community College and worked at the local convenience store. And, of course, I was walking home. I glanced behind me, looking at the alleyway behind Alessandro's Pizza, which was dark except for the neon light spilling from the sign. Her boyfriend reported her missing the next day. The town conducted a volunteer-led search, and after 2 days, they found something. Dread formed in my stomach, anticipating a body. But what he said next was so much worse. Washed up on the shore of Worthington Lake, they found a pair of size 9 red Converse sneakers. I stopped and looked down at my red Converse sneakers, damp from the rain. What the hell? My heart began to pound. The shoes were sent to a forensic analyst, who would compare its wear pattern to another pair of her shoes to try and determine if they belonged to the victim. A rumbling sound made me jump. I turned to see a dark SUV turning left at the intersection. Didn't I see that car a few minutes ago? Maybe it's following me, and the car passed me and disappeared into the darkness. Come on, Sarah, get a grip. Converse are popular sneakers. A little out of fashion, but still. 9 is a common women's shoe size. And what college student doesn't have some sort of a job? What, you think you're listening to some sort of prophecy of your own death? Yeah, right. After a few weeks, the results came back. The analyst was certain the shoes belonged to none other than Sarah Campbell. The blood drained from my face. Sarah Campbell. My name. What the fuck? How? I didn't have time to think. I forced myself to move. I broke into a run. The small shops turned into a colorful blur. Searching the lake came up empty. Without a body, a crime is hard to solve. But police didn't give up. And finally, a witness came forward. Someone had seen a car parked at the lake that night, around 2 a.m. A black SUV with darkened windows. No. What the hell is going on? I whipped around. The street was empty. No people, no cars, no witnesses, said the little voice in the back of my mind, the one that's watched way too many true crime shows. All closed. There were 6 black SUVs matching the witness's description in the Franklin area, but one of them, in particular, caught Detective Nolan's eye. It belonged to John Kelly, a registered sex offender, VRRM. The sound was so soft I almost didn't hear it over the voice of the podcast. I whipped around, and there it was. 2 blaring white headlights behind me, coming from a black SUV. I forced my legs to pump faster. The car didn't speed up, it crawled along, slowly, taking its time. Like the driver knew he could catch me, no matter what. I glanced back, trying to make him out behind the darkened windshield, but the headlights were too bright to see anything. Kelly wasn't just a registered sex offender. He'd been convicted of assaulting a woman he worked with, who had multiple piercings and short dark hair, just like Sarah. The car crawled down the road, stalking me like a lioness stalks her prey. I veered left, onto our dark residential street. Just a few more steps. Headlights flashed across me, illuminating my running shadow on the pavement. I didn't look back. I just ran as fast as I possibly could. The little brown house with the yellow shutters came into view. I sprinted across the grass, grabbing my keys from my pocket. Click. I threw the door open and slammed it shut behind me. Then I turned the deadbolt, collapsed against the door, and began crying. I heard the rush of the car passing our house, continuing down the road. But I wasn't safe. Gabe wasn't home yet. I was alone, in a dark house, with someone driving down the street who knew exactly where I lived. Still sobbing, I checked all the locks. Then I called Gabe, who assured me he was 5 minutes away. I made my way down the dark hallway and headed into the bathroom. Then I set my phone on the counter, grabbed a clump of tissues, and began to blow my nose. Click. I jumped, whipped around, but it wasn't coming from outside the door. My phone's screen lit up, the podcast was still playing. I must have hit it when I put the phone down. It had skipped several minutes forward, according to the play indicator. What do you think happened to Sarah? The baritone voice asked. I reached for it, to turn it off. Well, she told me she wanted to run away before I stopped dead. It was Gabe's voice, clear as day, coming from the speakers. She did. Why? The voice asked. She wasn't happy with her grades, her job, her parents. She told me sometimes she'd dream of just moving to some random state and leaving it all behind. I froze, staring at the mirror. I never said that. Never. Gabe was lying. I mean, that was hurtful to me as her boyfriend, you know. I thought we were going to get married someday. But apparently she didn't feel the same way. My heart pounded in my ears. So you think she just skipped town and is happily living her life out somewhere else, rather than being abducted or murdered? A pause. Yes, that's exactly what I think. That's all for now. Thank you to our listeners. The outro played. I stared at my reflection, everything coming down all at once, my mind trying to race and catch up with what it meant. The front door creaked open. Footsteps sounded outside. Sarah, I'm back. I backed away from the door. Sarah, my eyes fell on the window. I ran over to it, turned the lock. Push, I popped the screen out. Then I swung a leg over, pulled myself through the window, and ran as fast as I could. My parents made me a list of rules for my first time going out. My parents finally agreed that I am old enough to go out, but they have made a set of rules for me to follow. Down below are the rules they have given me. 1. Make sure you put on enough clothes. The nights are very cold around here. You might freeze to death otherwise. 2. If you are in danger, call us and we will come to get you. Do not call 911, we never trust the cops around here. They might harm you if you call them. 3. Be home before 3 a.m. We know that you are old enough to stay out late, but it's dangerous outside. We do not want you to get harmed. 4. Don't go out alone. It's more fun if you have company with you. 5. Take a taser with you and use it when you need it. 6. Always make sure the rifle is loaded. If you need to reload it, make sure of your surroundings. 7. Always choose a victim that you are not associated with. They have a harder time tracing it back to you. 8. Leave no evidence that can trace back to you. It will bite you in the ass if you are not careful enough. 9. Torture your victims a bit before hunting them. Pull out their teeth, burn their fingers, rip out their hair. The more DNA you destroy, the longer it takes before they can identify the body. 10. Go deep into the woods, as far from civilization as possible. You will be able to hunt for longer and the chances of the body being found will be lower. 11. Please make sure you remember all our rules. Forgetting a rule can result in your arrest or your demise. 12. Go and have fun. We are very proud of you. My parents are so thoughtful. I can barely contain my excitement while writing this. I already have chosen the perfect victim for my first hunt. I will make sure that they are very proud of me.